Lisa had checked everything 3 times. The flowers were perfect. The menu was exactly what she wanted. Even the weather seemed to be cooperating for once. After months of planning, tonight was finally here. She stood in front of her bedroom mirror, adjusting her black dress for the 5th time. This wasn't just any dinner. This was the dinner that could change everything for her. 12 of the most important people in the business world would be sitting around one table tonight. And she was the one who brought them together. 6 months ago, Lisa had been promoted to head of client relations at Parker & Associates. It was a big step up from her old job, and honestly, she still couldn't believe they picked her. There were other people with more experience, more connections, more everything, but somehow they saw something in her. Her boss, Robert Parker, had been clear about what he expected. "We need fresh ideas, Lisa. The old ways aren't working anymore. Our biggest clients are getting restless, and we need to show them something new." The pressure was real, but Lisa thrived under pressure. She always had. The idea for tonight's dinner came to her during a particularly boring meeting about quarterly reports. Instead of the usual corporate events with boring speeches and awkward networking, why not create something more personal? Something that felt special? She wanted these important clients to feel like they were part of something exclusive. So she booked the private dining room at Meridian, the kind of restaurant where you needed to know someone just to get a reservation, the kind of place where every dish was a work of art and the wine list read like a novel. It cost more than her monthly rent, but Robert had approved the budget without blinking. The guest list was carefully planned. Each person was chosen for a specific reason. There was Jonathan Mitchell, who owned half the real estate in the city; Catherine Wells, whose investment firm had billions under management; David Kim, the tech entrepreneur whose company had just gone public; and 9 others, each more influential than the last. Lisa arrived at the restaurant 30 minutes early. She wanted to check every detail personally. The table setting looked perfect, with crisp white linens and gleaming silverware. Fresh roses in small vases added just the right touch of elegance without being too flashy. The lighting was soft and warm, creating an intimate atmosphere that encouraged conversation. The restaurant manager, Antonio, walked her through the evening's timeline. "The champagne will be served as soon as your guests arrive. The first course comes out exactly 15 minutes later. We have your special wine selections ready, and our sommelier will present each one personally." Lisa nodded, trying to calm her nerves. She had done everything right, but there was always that voice in the back of her head wondering what could go wrong. What if the food wasn't good? What if the conversation was awkward? What if she had chosen the wrong people for the wrong night? The first guest arrived exactly on time. Jonathan Mitchell walked in wearing an expensive suit and the confident smile of someone who was used to being the most important person in the room. "Lisa, this place looks fantastic. You've outdone yourself." One by one, the others arrived. Catherine Wells brought her usual energy, immediately complimenting the flowers and asking about the wine selection. David Kim seemed a bit tired but brightened up when he saw the other guests. These were people who rarely had time for social events, but they had all made time for tonight. As they settled around the table, Lisa felt a wave of satisfaction. The conversation started naturally, flowing from business to travel to family. The champagne helped, of course, but there was something else happening. These people genuinely seemed to be enjoying themselves. The first course arrived, and it was beautiful. Delicate scallops with some kind of foam that the chef had explained, but Lisa couldn't pronounce. Everyone took photos before eating, which was exactly what she had hoped for. Social media was part of the plan. She wanted people to see this dinner, to wonder what it was about, to wish they had been invited. "This is incredible," Catherine said between bites. "How did you even find this place?" Lisa smiled. "I have my ways." The truth was, she had spent weeks researching restaurants, reading reviews, even visiting some of them during lunch hours to check them out personally. But tonight wasn't about the work behind the scenes. Tonight was about making everything look effortless. The wine sommelier appeared with the first bottle, a French white that cost more than most people made in a week. He explained the vineyard, the vintage, the subtle notes they should taste. Lisa watched her guests' faces as they sipped. She could see them being impressed, and that was exactly what she needed. Jonathan started telling a story about a business deal gone wrong, and soon everyone was sharing their own disaster stories. It was perfect. Instead of the usual corporate small talk, they were having real conversations. Lisa felt herself relaxing for the first time in weeks. The second course came out, and then the third. Each one was better than the last. The conversation kept flowing, moving from business to politics to sports. These were busy people who rarely had time to just sit and talk, but tonight they seemed to have all the time in the world. David Kim raised his glass during the fourth course. "I have to say, Lisa, this is the best business dinner I've been to in years. Usually these things feel like work, but this actually feels like fun." The others agreed, and Lisa felt a warm glow of pride. This was working exactly as she had planned. Better than she had planned, actually. She could see deals being made in the casual conversations. She could see relationships forming. This wasn't just a dinner anymore. It was the beginning of something bigger. Robert Parker would be thrilled when he heard about tonight. More importantly, these clients would remember this evening. They would remember how Lisa made them feel, and they would want to work with someone who could create experiences like this. The fifth course was being served when Lisa noticed the restaurant manager walking toward their table with a serious expression. For a moment, her heart skipped. Was something wrong with the kitchen? Had they run out of wine? Was there a problem with the bill? But as Antonio got closer, she could see he was carrying something. A small envelope. He approached her chair quietly, not wanting to interrupt the conversation around the table. "Excuse me, Miss Lisa," he said in a low voice. "This was just delivered for you." The person said it was urgent. Lisa took the envelope, feeling confused. Who would send her something here? How did they even know where she was? The envelope was plain white with her name written on the front in neat handwriting. No return address. No company logo. Nothing to indicate where it came from. She looked around the table. Her guests were still deep in conversation, laughing at something Catherine had said. The evening was going perfectly. Whatever was in this envelope could wait until later. But something about the way it had been delivered made her curious. The word urgent stuck in her mind. She excused herself from the table, saying she needed to make a quick phone call, and walked to the restaurant's lobby. Standing near the windows overlooking the city, Lisa opened the envelope with hands that suddenly felt shaky. Inside was a single piece of paper with just one sentence written in the same neat handwriting. As she read those words, everything changed. The words on the paper seemed to blur in front of Lisa's eyes. She read them once, then twice, then a third time, hoping they would somehow change or make more sense. "Your husband Tom isn't who you think he is. Check his office tonight. Someone who cares." Lisa's hands started trembling. She looked around the restaurant lobby, but it was empty except for a couple waiting to be seated. Her heart was beating so fast she could hear it in her ears. This had to be some kind of mistake. Maybe it was meant for someone else. Maybe someone was playing a cruel joke. She walked to the ladies' room and locked herself in a stall, reading the note again. The handwriting was neat and careful, like someone had taken time to write it properly. This wasn't a quick scribble or an angry message. Someone had planned this. Tom, her husband of 8 years, the man who brought her coffee in bed every morning and left little notes in her lunch. The man who supported her through night school and celebrated every promotion like it was his own. Tom, who was supposed to be home right now, probably watching some boring documentary about World War II. But lately, things had been different. Tom had been working late more often. He got phone calls that he would take in another room. Last week she had seen him quickly close his laptop when she walked into the kitchen. When she asked about it, he said it was just work stuff, boring reports that would put her to sleep. Lisa tried to calm down. There had to be a reasonable explanation. Maybe someone was trying to cause trouble for Tom at his job. Maybe it was a disgruntled coworker or a competitor trying to start rumors. Tom worked in marketing for a mid-sized company. It wasn't exactly the kind of job that created enemies, but people could be petty about anything. She folded the note and put it in her purse, then walked back to the dining room. Her guests were still enjoying themselves, but now their laughter seemed too loud. The wine tasted sour. The beautiful food looked fake under the warm lights. "Everything okay?" asked Catherine, noticing Lisa's pale face. "Oh yes, just a small work thing," Lisa managed to say. "Nothing that can't wait until tomorrow." But she couldn't focus on the conversation anymore. While Jonathan told a funny story about his first business meeting, Lisa found herself thinking about all the small things she had noticed, but ignored. Tom's phone was always face down now. He had started taking showers as soon as he got home from work. Last month, she had found a receipt for dinner at an expensive restaurant on a night when he said he was working late and ate at his desk. At the time, she had assumed it was a business dinner he forgot to mention. Tom wasn't the type to remember every detail of his day, but now with this note burning in her purse, everything seemed suspicious. The sixth course arrived, some kind of fancy fish with sauce that probably had a French name. Lisa pushed it around her plate, pretending to eat while her mind raced. Who could have sent this note? How did they know where she was tonight? And why would they care enough to warn her? The presentation you're planning sounds brilliant, David was saying to Jonathan. We should definitely explore that partnership. Lisa realized she should be paying attention. This was exactly the kind of connection she had hoped to create tonight. But all she could think about was Tom and what she might find if she actually checked his office. Maybe she shouldn't check. Maybe some things were better left unknown. They had a good life together. Tom was a good husband, even if he had been a bit distant lately. Everyone went through rough patches in their marriage. It didn't mean anything was seriously wrong, but the note had been so specific. Check his office tonight. Not tomorrow, not next week. Tonight. As if whatever was there might not be there for long. Lisa excused herself again, this time saying she needed to call the babysitter. She didn't have children, but her guests didn't know that. In the lobby, she called Tom. Hey, honey, his voice sounded normal when he answered. How's the big dinner going? It's going well, Lisa said, trying to keep her voice steady. Really well, actually. I think Robert will be pleased. That's great. I knew you'd knock it out of the park. What are you up to tonight? Oh, just the usual. I have some reports to finish for tomorrow's meeting. Pretty boring stuff. I'll probably be up late working on them. In your office? There was a tiny pause before Tom answered. Yeah, where else would I be working? Right, of course. Well, I should get back to my guests. Okay, have fun and don't worry about making noise when you get home. I'll probably be asleep by then. Lisa hung up and stared at her phone. The conversation had sounded normal, but that small pause bothered her. Why would he hesitate before saying he was in his office? Unless he wasn't in his office. Unless he was somewhere else entirely. She went back to the table and tried to focus on being a good hostess. The seventh and final course was being served, some kind of chocolate dessert that looked like a work of art. Her guests were talking about setting up more meetings, planning future collaborations. Everything she had hoped for was happening, but she felt like she was watching it through thick glass. This has been absolutely wonderful, Catherine said as they finished dessert. We should do this again soon. Definitely, agreed Jonathan. Lisa, you've created something special here tonight. The compliments should have made her feel proud, but instead they felt hollow. Lisa smiled and thanked everyone, made plans for follow-up meetings and exchanged business cards. She played her part perfectly, but inside she felt like she was falling apart. As her guests started to leave, each one thanked her personally. David Kim shook her hand and said, This dinner will be talked about for months. You've set a new standard. Finally, Lisa was alone in the restaurant lobby. Antonio approached with the bill, which she signed without looking at the total. Her company would handle the payment later. I hope everything was satisfactory, Antonio said. It was perfect, Lisa replied automatically. And the message that was delivered earlier, I hope it wasn't bad news. Lisa looked at him sharply. Do you remember who delivered it? It was a woman, middle-aged, well-dressed. She said she was a friend of yours and that it was important you receive it tonight. She seemed very concerned that you get it. Did she give you her name? No, I'm sorry. She just asked me to make sure you received it personally. Lisa thanked him and walked out into the cool night air. The valet brought her car and she sat in the driver's seat for a long moment before starting the engine. She could go home and pretend she never received the note. She could assume it was all a misunderstanding and continue with her life as if nothing had happened, or she could find out the truth. The drive home took 20 minutes, but it felt like hours. Lisa kept thinking about the woman who had delivered the note. Someone who knew her well enough to know where she would be tonight. Someone who cared enough to warn her but didn't want to be identified. The list of people who fit that description was very short. When she pulled into her driveway, Tom's car was there. The lights were on in his office, just like he had said. For a moment, Lisa felt relieved. Maybe the note was wrong. Maybe everything was fine. But as she sat in her car looking at the lit window of Tom's office, she realized that she had to know for sure. The doubt would eat at her if she didn't. Their marriage couldn't survive on uncertainty and suspicion. Lisa took a deep breath and walked toward the house, the note still folded in her purse, ready to discover what truth was waiting for her behind that office door. Lisa stood in her driveway for what felt like forever, keys in her hand, staring at her own house. The kitchen light was on, and she could see the soft glow from Tom's office window upstairs. Everything looked normal and peaceful, like any other night when she came home from work. But nothing felt normal anymore. She walked slowly to the front door, her heels clicking on the concrete path. Each step felt heavy, like she was walking through thick mud. Part of her wanted to turn around, get back in her car, and drive somewhere far away, where mysterious notes and marriage problems couldn't find her. The key turned easily in the lock. The house smelled like the vanilla candle Tom always lit in the evenings, mixed with the leftover scent of whatever he had made for dinner. It smelled like home, like safety, like everything she thought she knew about her life. "Tom," she called out, keeping her voice light and casual. "Up here," came his voice from the office. "How was the dinner?" "Great," she called back, hanging her coat in the closet. "Really great, actually. I think we made some good connections." "That's fantastic. I'm just finishing up some work. I'll be down in a few minutes." Lisa walked into the kitchen and poured herself a glass of water. Her hands were still shaking slightly, and she gripped the glass tighter to steady them. The kitchen looked exactly the same as when she had left that morning. Tom's coffee mug was washed and sitting in the dish rack. The newspaper was folded neatly on the counter. Everything in its place, just like always. She could hear the soft clicking of computer keys from upstairs. Tom really was working just like he had said. Maybe the note was completely wrong. Maybe someone had confused her with another Lisa, or maybe it was some kind of sick prank. But even as she tried to convince herself, Lisa knew she had to check. The doubt would poison everything if she didn't. She would find herself watching Tom constantly, looking for signs of deception, questioning every late night at work and every phone call. That wasn't a way to live, and it wasn't fair to either of them. Lisa climbed the stairs quietly, even though there was no reason to be quiet. Tom knew she was home. She was allowed to be in her own house, but something about the situation made her feel like she was sneaking around. The office door was slightly open, and she could see Tom sitting at his desk, exactly where he said he would be. His back was to the door, and the computer screen cast a blue glow on his face. He was typing steadily, occasionally pausing to read something on the screen. "How did everything go with the clients?" he asked without turning around. "Really well. Jonathan Mitchell seemed especially interested in working with us more." Lisa stepped into the doorway, trying to act normal while her eyes scanned the room. The office looked the same as always. Tom's desk was neat and organized, with papers sorted into specific piles. His coffee mug sat next to the keyboard, still half full. Bookshelves lined 2 walls filled with business books and a few novels. It was the same room where Tom had worked for years, where he paid their bills and managed their finances. "That's great news," Tom said, finally turning around to smile at her. "I knew tonight would be a success." Looking at his face, Lisa felt a wave of guilt. This was Tom, her husband, the man she loved. He looked tired but happy, genuinely pleased about her successful evening. The idea that he was hiding something suddenly seemed ridiculous. "I'm going to get ready for bed," she said. "Don't work too late." "Just a few more minutes," Tom replied, turning back to his computer. "This report is due first thing tomorrow morning." Lisa went to their bedroom and changed out of her dress, hanging it carefully in the closet. In the bathroom, she washed off her makeup and brushed her teeth, all the while thinking about the note in her purse downstairs. Maybe she should just throw it away and forget about it. Maybe some mysteries were better left unsolved. But as she looked at herself in the mirror, Lisa realized she couldn't let it go. The woman who had delivered the note had seemed concerned, according to the restaurant manager. Someone had taken the trouble to find out where Lisa would be tonight and had made sure she received the message. That took effort and planning. It wasn't the kind of thing someone would do as a prank. Lisa waited until she heard Tom come into the bedroom. He moved around quietly, thinking she was asleep. She listened to him brush his teeth and change into his pajamas. When he finally got into bed, she forced her breathing to stay steady and even, pretending to be asleep. After what felt like hours, She heard Tom's breathing change to the deep, regular rhythm of sleep. Very carefully, Lisa slipped out of bed and crept downstairs. The house was dark except for the small light they always left on in the hallway. She stood outside Tom's office for a long moment, her hand on the doorknob. This was it. Once she went in and started looking around, there would be no going back. If she found something, everything would change. If she found nothing, she would have to live with the fact that she had snooped through her husband's private things because of an anonymous note. The door opened silently. Tom's computer was in sleep mode, the screen dark. The desk looked exactly the same as it had earlier, papers neatly organized, everything in its place. Lisa turned on the small desk lamp and began looking around more carefully. She wasn't sure what she was looking for. The note had just said to check his office, but it didn't specify what she should be checking for. Papers, computer files, something hidden? Lisa started with the desk drawers. The top drawer was full of the usual office supplies, pens, paper clips, sticky notes. The second drawer had files with their insurance papers, tax documents, and bank statements. Nothing unusual. The bottom drawer was locked. Lisa stared at the small brass lock on the drawer handle. In 8 years of marriage, she had never noticed that Tom kept this drawer locked. Why would someone lock a desk drawer in their own home? What could be so private that it needed to be kept away from his own wife? She looked around the office for a key. Tom was organized and practical. If he kept a key for this drawer, it would be somewhere logical but not obvious. Lisa checked under the desk behind the computer monitor and in the pencil holder. Nothing. Then she remembered how Tom always kept important keys. There was a small magnetic box under his desk that he used for spare keys. Lisa had seen him use it before when he locked himself out of the house. She felt around under the desk until her fingers found the small metal box. Inside were 3 keys. One was clearly a house key. Another looked like it might be for his car. The third was small and brass, exactly the right size for a desk drawer. Lisa's heart was pounding so hard she was afraid it might wake Tom upstairs. She held the key in her hand for a long moment, knowing that using it would cross a line, but she had already come this far. The note had been right about one thing. Tom did have secrets. Normal husbands didn't lock drawers in their own homes. The key turned easily, and the drawer slid open with a soft whisper. Inside were papers, but not the kind Lisa had expected. These weren't work documents or tax forms. They were bank statements for an account she had never seen before, credit card bills for a card she didn't know Tom had, and underneath everything else a stack of photographs. Lisa picked up the photos with hands that were now shaking uncontrollably. The first few were of Tom, but not the Tom she knew. These photos showed him at restaurants she had never been to, at parties she had never attended, always with the same woman. The woman was pretty, with dark hair and a bright smile. In some photos, she and Tom were sitting close together at dinner tables. In others, they were walking hand in hand through what looked like a park. The final photo showed them kissing outside what appeared to be an apartment building. Lisa sat down heavily in Tom's office chair, the photos scattered across the desk in front of her. Each image was like a punch to the stomach. This wasn't just an affair. This was a whole other life that Tom had been living, complete with romantic dinners and weekend trips and intimate moments that should have been reserved for his wife. The bank statements showed regular payments to someone named Rebecca Walsh. The credit card bills showed charges at expensive restaurants and hotels, always on days when Tom had told Lisa he was working late or attending boring business meetings. As Lisa sat in the dark office, surrounded by evidence of her husband's deception, she realized that the anonymous note had been trying to save her from living a lie. Someone had cared enough to show her the truth, even though it would hurt. The question now was what she was going to do about it. Outside, the first hints of dawn were beginning to show in the sky. Tom would be waking up soon, and he would expect everything to be normal. He would make coffee and read the news and kiss her goodbye before going to work, just like he had every day for 8 years. But Lisa knew that nothing would ever be normal again. Lisa sat in Tom's chair until the sun came up, staring at the photos spread across the desk. Each time she looked at them, she hoped they would somehow be different, that she had misunderstood what she was seeing. But there was no misunderstanding the way Tom looked at this other woman, the way he held her hand, the way he kissed her like she was the most important thing in his world. The bank statements told an even more detailed story. Monthly payments to Rebecca Walsh for over a year. Restaurant charges that matched the photos. Hotel bills for weekends when Tom had told Lisa he was visiting his sick aunt in Portland. Even small charges for flowers and gifts, probably the same kind of thoughtful presents he used to bring home to Lisa. By 6:30, Lisa could hear Tom moving around upstairs. She quickly put everything back in the drawer exactly as she had found it, locked it, and returned the key to its hiding place. She managed to get back to the bedroom just as Tom was coming out of the shower. "You're up early," he said, wrapping a towel around his waist. "Couldn't sleep?" "Just excited about following up on last night," Lisa said, surprised by how normal her voice sounded. "I want to call Catherine Wells first thing this morning." Tom smiled and kissed her forehead. It was the same kiss he had given her thousands of times before, but now it felt like a lie against her skin. "I'm proud of you. I always knew you were going to do big things." Lisa watched him get dressed for work, choosing his tie carefully, checking his appearance in the mirror. She wondered if he did the same thing when he was getting ready to see Rebecca. Did he choose his clothes carefully for her too? Did he check his reflection and imagine how she would react when she saw him? "I might be late tonight," Tom said as he finished knotting his tie. "Big presentation tomorrow and the team wants to run through it one more time." Before last night, Lisa would have accepted this explanation without question. Tom worked hard, and presentations were important, but now she looked at him differently. Now she saw the way he avoided her eyes when he talked about being late. Now she noticed how quickly he had come up with an excuse for being out tonight. "What's the presentation about?" she asked. "Oh, budget projections for next quarter. Pretty boring stuff." Tom was gathering his briefcase and laptop, moving with the efficient motions of someone who wanted to leave quickly. "Which client?" Tom paused for just a moment, his hand on his laptop bag. "Peterson Industries. They're thinking about expanding their marketing budget." Lisa nodded, but she was already planning. Peterson Industries was one of her company's clients too. It would be easy enough to check whether Tom's company was really doing a presentation for them tomorrow. After Tom left, Lisa called in sick to work. She needed time to think, to plan, to figure out what she was going to do with the information she had discovered. She also needed to find out more about Rebecca Walsh. A simple internet search turned up more than Lisa had expected. Rebecca Walsh was a marketing coordinator at a small firm downtown. Her LinkedIn profile showed that she had graduated from the same university as Tom, though several years later. Her Facebook page was mostly private, but her profile picture showed the same pretty woman from the photographs, smiling brightly at the camera. Lisa spent the morning making phone calls. She confirmed that Tom's company was not doing any presentation for Peterson Industries. She called the hotel where Tom claimed to have stayed during his aunt visits and discovered that no one by his name had ever been registered there. Every lie she checked led to another lie, like pulling on a thread that unraveled an entire sweater. By afternoon, Lisa had made a decision. She was going to confront Tom, but she wanted to do it properly. She deserved the truth, the whole truth, not just whatever explanation he might come up with when caught off guard. Lisa spent the day preparing. She made copies of the bank statements and photographs. She wrote down all the lies she had discovered, with dates and details. She even found the receipt for the expensive dinner she had questioned months ago. It was for 2 people at a romantic restaurant on Rebecca's birthday, according to her Facebook page. When Tom came home that evening, Lisa was waiting in the living room with everything spread out on the coffee table like evidence in a tray. "Hey, honey," Tom called out as he hung up his coat. "How was your day? Still riding high from last night's success?" "Come sit down, Tom," Lisa said quietly. "We need to talk." Something in her voice must have warned him, because his footsteps slowed as he walked into the living room. When he saw the papers and photographs on the coffee table, his face went completely white. "Lisa, I can explain." "Sit down," she said again, more firmly this time. Tom sat on the edge of the couch, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. He looked like a child who had been caught stealing cookies, except this was so much worse than cookies. "How long?" Lisa asked. "How long what? Don't make this harder than it already is. How long have you been seeing Rebecca Walsh?" Tom's shoulders sagged, and suddenly he looked much older than his 34 years. "1.5 years," he said quietly. "How did you meet her?" "At a conference in Chicago. We just connected." Lisa picked up one of the photographs, the one that showed Tom and Rebecca kissing. This doesn't look like a business connection. I know how it looks, but it's not what you think. I mean, it is what you think, but it's complicated. Complicated? Lisa repeated the word like it tasted bad. You've been lying to me for a year and a half. You've been spending our money on another woman. You've been living a completely separate life. What's complicated about that? Tom put his head in his hands. I never meant for it to happen. I love you, Lisa. I've always loved you, but with Rebecca, it's different. She makes me feel like a different person. What kind of different person? Someone more interesting, someone worth paying attention to. You've been so focused on your career, so busy with work, and I felt invisible. Rebecca sees me. Lisa stared at him, feeling anger rise in her chest like a wave. So this is my fault? Because I worked hard to build a career, you decided to cheat on me? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just trying to explain how it happened. How it happened, Lisa said slowly, is that you made a choice. Every time you met her for dinner, every time you booked a hotel room, every time you lied to me about where you were going, those were all choices. Tom looked up at her with tears in his eyes. I know, and I'm sorry. I've wanted to tell you so many times, but I didn't know how. I didn't want to hurt you. You didn't want to hurt me. Lisa's voice was getting louder now. Do you think lying to me for a year and a half didn't hurt me? Do you think making me feel crazy for noticing that something was wrong didn't hurt me? You're right. I handled everything wrong. But we can fix this, Lisa. I'll end things with Rebecca. We can go to counseling. We can work through this. Lisa looked at the photographs again, at the way Tom's face lit up when he looked at Rebecca, at the obvious happiness in his eyes. Do you love her? The question hung in the air for a long moment. Tom opened his mouth, then closed it again. Finally, he nodded. Yes, he whispered. I do. Then there's nothing to work through, Lisa said, standing up from her chair. You can't love two people the way a husband should love his wife. You've already made your choice, Tom. You made it a year and a half ago. Lisa, please don't do this. Don't throw away 8 years of marriage over a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk on the way home. A mistake is double booking dinner plans. This is not a mistake. This is a betrayal, and it's been going on for half of our marriage. Tom started to cry, really cry, with his whole body shaking. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose us. But Lisa felt strangely calm now that everything was out in the open. The not knowing had been worse than the knowing. The lies had been worse than the truth. You already lost us, Tom. You lost us the first time you chose to be with her instead of working on being with me. She walked toward the stairs, then turned back to look at him one more time. I want you to pack some things and stay somewhere else tonight. We'll figure out the rest later, but I can't have you in this house right now. Where am I supposed to go? Lisa picked up one of the bank statements and held it up. You've been paying for Rebecca's apartment for over a year. I'm sure she has room for you. As she walked upstairs, Lisa heard Tom crying harder behind her. She felt sad for him, and for herself, and for the marriage they had built together. But she also felt something she hadn't expected. Relief. The truth was finally out, and now she could start figuring out what came next. 6 months later, Lisa stood in the kitchen of her new apartment making coffee in a machine that was completely hers. The apartment was smaller than the house she had shared with Tom, but every single thing in it belonged to her. The books on the shelves were books she had chosen. The art on the walls reflected her taste, not a compromise between two people. Even the coffee was exactly the way she liked it, strong and black, without worrying about someone else's preferences. The divorce had been messy, but not as messy as it could have been. Tom had been so consumed with guilt that he hadn't fought her on much. They had sold the house and split the proceeds. Lisa had kept her car and most of their savings, since Tom had spent so much of their money on his secret life with Rebecca. The lawyers had handled everything with professional efficiency, turning 8 years of marriage into a stack of legal documents. Lisa's phone buzzed with a text from Catherine Wells. Lunch today at Meridian? I have a business proposition for you. Lisa smiled as she typed back her acceptance. Catherine had become more than just a client since that dinner 6 months ago. She had become a friend, a mentor, and now apparently someone with business ideas that involved Lisa directly. The success of that dinner had led to exactly the kind of career advancement Lisa had hoped for. Robert Parker had promoted her to senior partner and given her a substantial raise. 3 of the clients from that evening had brought their companies to the firm specifically to work with her. The dinner that had started with such promise and ended with such personal devastation had somehow become the launching point for the best period of her professional life. As Lisa got dressed for lunch, she thought about how much had changed since that night. The woman who had worn the black dress and worried about every detail of the dinner felt like a different person. That woman had been trying so hard to please everyone, to make everything perfect, to hold together a life that was already falling apart without her knowing it. This version of herself was more confident, more direct, more willing to trust her instincts. She had learned that she was stronger than she had ever imagined. The night when she discovered Tom's betrayal could have broken her, but instead, it had freed her. The drive to Meridian took her past the neighborhood where she used to live with Tom. Lisa had driven this route dozens of times in the first few weeks after the separation, torturing herself by looking at the house they had shared. But today she barely glanced in that direction. The past was the past, and she was focused on moving forward. Catherine was already waiting at the restaurant when Lisa arrived. She looked as polished and energetic as always, but there was an excitement in her expression that suggested big news. "You look fantastic," Catherine said as they were seated at a table by the windows. "Divorce agrees with you." Lisa laughed. "I'm not sure I'd recommend it as a beauty treatment, but I do feel better than I have in years." "Good, because I have something I want to discuss with you. Something that might interest you very much." Over lunch, Catherine laid out her proposal. Her investment firm was looking to expand into marketing and public relations. They wanted someone to head up a new division, someone with proven ability, to bring people together and create meaningful business relationships, someone exactly like Lisa. "The salary would be double what you're making now," Catherine said, "plus equity in the company and a budget to build your own team. You'd have complete autonomy over how you run the division." Lisa set down her fork and stared at Catherine. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious. I've been thinking about this since that dinner 6 months ago. The way you brought all those people together, the relationships you built in a single evening, that's a rare talent. I want that talent working for my company." "I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. Say you'll let me show you the office space we have in mind. Say you'll meet with my partner so they can try to convince you." Lisa felt a familiar excitement building in her chest. The same feeling she had gotten when she was planning the dinner that had changed everything. "I'll think about it," she said. "But honestly, Catherine, it sounds incredible." After lunch, Lisa walked through downtown instead of driving straight home. The city looked different to her now, full of possibilities instead of obligations. She found herself thinking about the anonymous note that had started everything. She had never found out who sent it. Despite her curiosity, despite hiring a private investigator to look into it, the identity of the woman who had delivered the message remained a mystery. The investigator had confirmed that someone had paid cash to have the note delivered, but the restaurant had no security cameras in the lobby, and the description could have fit hundreds of women. Lisa had stopped looking for answers after a few months. The identity of her anonymous helper mattered less than the fact that someone had cared enough to tell her the truth. Someone had seen that she was living a lie and had risked her anger, her disbelief, even her hatred to show her reality. While walking past a coffee shop, Lisa saw a familiar figure through the window. Rebecca Walsh was sitting at a small table working on a laptop. She looked tired and stressed, not at all like the happy woman in the photographs Lisa had found. For a moment, Lisa considered going inside. She had never actually met Rebecca, had never confronted the woman who had been part of destroying her marriage. But as she stood on the sidewalk looking through the window, Lisa realized she didn't feel angry anymore. Rebecca had been part of Tom's choices, but she hadn't made those choices for him. Tom was the one who had been married. Tom was the one who had made promises and broken them. Besides, from what Lisa had heard through mutual friends, Rebecca and Tom's relationship hadn't survived the transition from secret affair to open relationship. The excitement of sneaking around and stolen moments apparently hadn't translated well to everyday reality. They had broken up within 3 months of Tom moving in with her. Lisa walked on, leaving Rebecca to her laptop and her coffee. She had more important things to think about than the past. That evening, Lisa called her sister to tell her about Catherine's job offer. "That's amazing," her sister said. "Are you going to take it?" "I think so. It's exactly the kind of opportunity I never would have looked for when I was married. I was so focused on keeping everything stable, keeping Tom happy, keeping our life predictable. And now? Now I want to see what I can build when I'm only responsible for my own happiness." As they talked, Lisa realized that the anonymous note had given her more than just the truth about Tom's affair. It had given her permission to stop pretending that everything was fine when it wasn't. It had forced her to face reality instead of living in a comfortable lie. The next morning, Lisa called Catherine and accepted the job offer. As she hung up the phone, she felt the same nervous excitement she had felt before the dinner that had changed her life. The difference was that this time, she was choosing to take a risk entirely for herself. 6 months ago, Lisa had been planning a dinner to impress other people, to advance her career by making everyone else happy. Today, she was making decisions based on what she wanted, what would challenge her, what would help her grow. She still didn't know who had sent the note that started everything, but she knew she owed that anonymous woman a debt of gratitude. The truth had hurt, but it had also set her free. Lisa poured herself another cup of coffee and started planning her new life, one decision at a time, all of them completely her own.